Happy Monday and welcome into the Keeper Action News studio. Myck Miller along Alan Hoshida, episode 2 of the Monday TRIfecta podcast. It's great to be with you. Alan, how was your weekend? You getting ready for another big week?
It was good. I played golf a couple times, so that's always a good weekend. Didn't play great, but it was fun.
Yeah, you had some pretty good snaps on Instagram, so it's all about what you put on Instagram.
Yeah,
it's not about what the results are in the golf. So let's get right into it today. We're going to recap quickly the Water Follies weekend. My first one, this is your third. So I'm the rookie, turned into the veteran. You gave me all the information that I needed. What was your takeaway from this weekend's Water Folly event?
I think the biggest takeaway is that there was 10 boats. And that's really cool for the sport to see 10 boats because that doesn't usually happen. Every driver that I spoke to on Friday said that they've never raced when there was 10 boats.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I think actually 9 were only qualified, so it wasn't a full stable. But just to have them all there, the crowds, obviously this is a huge weekend for the Tri-Cities, just for tourism and creating funding for the rest of the year. But overall, I thought it was really cool. I thought Jimmy Shane was going to sweep this whole thing because he was so dominant all weekend long. And then on Sunday, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah.
And Jay Michael came out and upset the champ there. He's not the champ. He's not even the defending champ.
Yeah.
But, he upset Shane and took it from there.
Yeah, for me, it was my first ever Water Follies event, and so I was amazed by the spectacular that it was. Friday coming in, we were interviewing race drivers, and I was looking out, and there were thousands and thousands of people, tents and RVs, and I really didn't understand it because coming from the East Coast, we have rivers, we have the Potomac River, but nobody's going out there. And if you do, you're in a big boat to make sure that if you do fall out, like you can get to a hospital pretty immediately. But it was pretty amazing that the Columbia River was beautiful. There were so many people out there. Friday, it was really cool seeing all the races as they were participating, getting ready for the weekend. Saturday, like you said, Jimmy Shane and Andrew Tate dominated the scenes. They both won in their big heats on Saturday. And so I thought Jimmy Shane either was going to win or Andrew Tate was going to win because Jay Michael, he did have a good weekend. He was coming in second right behind Jimmy Shane, and so I thought, that may have flustered his confidence or whatever. But on Sunday, like you said, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah,
and Jay Michael Kelly was able to come out with a big-time victory. It was amazing for him. It was cool. One of the best parts of it was as soon as he came out the boat, he had to do all his interviews and stuff, and then we were going to the podium and had the big celebration. But before he did that, he ran and found his sons and went to go hug his sons. It was a tremendous sight to see. I had the opportunity to sit down with Jay Michael right after he won the Columbia Cup. Take a listen.
Oh, this is amazing. This is probably the best race site on the circuit with as far as like the fan base. You go up and down the shorelines and it doesn't end. And, I haven't had the chance to go to the other side, but you can definitely see it from here. There's tons of people over there. And, I was able to go down into some of the tents down there. And, man, they were just so welcoming, and it didn't matter who we were. They were just happy.
All right, we just heard from the champ of the Columbia Cup, but I want to know, who was your champion food vendor?
Oof. There were so many. On Friday, you witnessed probably one of the worst decisions that I made.
That was a terrible decision.
I went to this hot dog truck and got a chili dog.
Nope.
It was the greatest thing that I've ever tasted and the worst I've ever felt in my entire life. It was literally like this big, and I tried to pick it up, but you couldn't pick it up and eat it. So I felt super bougie because I was eating it with a fork and a knife. It was tremendous. There was a shave ice place. There were so many good food places, but I'd probably say the hot dog place was my favorite.
I had ceviche on Friday because I knew it was hot, and I didn't want to be bloated and or needing to find the nearest porta potty.
That goes back to you being the vet. This is your third Water Follies event.
I tried to tell you. I told you. I was like, no.
But as a young rookie,
he said,
I
"Do you
don't
want a hot
listen.
dog or a hamburger?" And I was like, "Nope." That should have been your cue.
Yeah. No.
Well,
can't read it.
Next year, Switching gears now to the Dust Devils. They had an up-and-down week, lose at home, their series at home against Spokane, then go on the road against Everett, take the series.
Yep.
They're taking on Salem Kaiser for 3 now, but the Bats woke up.
Yeah.
11 home runs in games 2 and 3, just 2 and 3. Saturday, 5. Sunday, 6 home runs. That's wild.
And it's crazy for me because on the weekend I was here and I was following the game and I saw home run, then home run. And I was like, where has this been this whole entire season? Because we've talked about it multiple times, and you talked to Chris King, we'll hear from him in a little while, that the bats really have been the issue. And manager Mike McCoy's talked about the pitching's been tremendous, but they just haven't been able to put runs on the board. It seems that they may have fixed that. It's all about consistency, though. So those 2 games, we're super excited that happened, but they have to be able to do that each and every single time that they step on the plate.
And McCoy said when I talked to him last week that sometimes he feels like the players maybe press at home because they know they have to hit the ball so much harder to get it out of the ballpark or into the wide gaps. So maybe on the road they relax a little bit and they can just let the ball come to them and just swing freely. Jordy Barley certainly did. In 2 games, he had 8 RBIs, 8 hits. 4 of those hits, half of his hits, went out of the ballpark. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. And we talked about him last week about how kind of he has like base running blunders. He had a lot of errors.
He had a rough series against Spokane too.
Yeah, but this is why they're going to not give up on him because he's young too. But his bat is real. 8 RBIs, 2 home runs in each game, and then Gilby had 3. Raza had 2, and he's a small guy. Ronaldo is a small guy. He has like a kind of a slap approach, but obviously that's his 3rd and 4th home run, so he's still got a little pop. But that was really cool to see. Like you said, I talked to Chris King a little bit, and this was about a week ago, so before the power surge and everything was going on. So I didn't ask him about all that. But listen in, Chris King, we're going to talk about all things Padres organization, the Dust Devils, and of course, calling a no-hitter.
Yep.
All right, we are here with the voice of the Tri-City Dust Devils, Mr. Chris King, and little fact here, you are the first guest on the Monday TRIfecta podcast with me and Myck Miller. How does that make you feel?
Well, I'm honored. I appreciate the other people who rejected where you get in line to turn to me, but it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And hey, we've got a beautiful day where we get to chat baseball. We're here out at Geisa Stadium. Life's good.
It is a beautiful day. Not too hot right now. Who knows when this is going to air, but right now it's not too hot. So let's get started. We're in the middle of Dust Devil season, and we're right there in the middle. What's your first half kind of takeaways from this club?
Yeah, the team ended up being 16-22 in the first half. There's, some ups and some downs as far as the wins and losses go. Some streaks that were good, some streaks that maybe the losses added up a little bit. But that's the beautiful thing about the Northwest League season is you have 76 games. They split it up between the first half and the second half. So if the first half, maybe there inconsistencies at time for any of the teams that you get to hit the restart button in the start of the second half and start fresh. And, we'll see here for the Dust Devils in the second half how it ultimately unfolds.
Yeah, there hasn't really been that much movement. I think Dana went up, Benson went up, Becker, and then just a couple guys moved here, but there's only been like 5 or 6 moves overall, right?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. It's been really different this year.
Yeah.
Normally, it seems like there's a new roster being churned out every day or two, or that email comes in saying, hey, this guy's going to Fort Wayne, this guy's going to Lake Elsinore, so-and-so's on his way here. But it's been consistent, which I think can help at times where guys maybe know, they're kind of on a more of a consistent rotation. If you're a pitcher, guys might know, when they might be in the lineup, when they might have a day off. But yeah, we'll see. It's been shockingly consistent this year. It's more like it used to be. This is my 8th year, and when I started, it was more consistent throughout the whole season.
When it was with the Rockies.
With the Rockies, and I think just kind of the trend in the Northwest League, and maybe how teams handle their short season A affiliates. But yeah, it's been really consistent.
If we're talking about the Padres organization, that they just seem like they have a wealth of riches right now. That every level you look, they have guys. And at the top of the level, the Padres, Fernando Tatis Jr. isn't going anywhere for the next decade unless they decide to do something very Padres-like and trade him away. And then you have Urias, who was just here and just got called up a couple of years ago, who they think is their second baseman of the future. And then you have Owen Miller, Double-A, who was just here a couple years ago, hit a 3-run walk-off.
Just last year.
Yeah,
he was just last year.
Yeah, that's
Northwest
right.
League All-Star
games.
last year, and now he's a Double-A All-Star for Amarillo in the Texas League.
And then you have Tucapito, you have Xavier Edwards, you have the first-round pick from this year. What are they going to do with all these guys?
That's interesting. And there's Manny Machado up in the big leagues too, and not necessarily a shortstop, but a guy that they made a big investment in who is going to be an infielder for the Padres for many years to come after, the big signing, that big kind of whale they reeled in with him. And yeah, that's a great question. I think, a lot of times if you can play shortstop, you can play a number of other places out in the field. So that's a good problem. You're typically one of, if not the most athletic player on a team if you're the team's shortstop. So I think the Padres are just trying to stockpile talent. They're trying to stockpile athletes. But you mentioned two guys last year. Owen Miller was here and got promoted right around this time. He got promoted to Fort Wayne. And a guy who's just been a hitting machine. He just has hit at every level he's been at. And he's already up in Double-A after starting his pro career with the Dust Devils last year. And then Xavier Edwards was the guy who came and took his spot.
Yeah.
And now Edwards, one of the top players in the Midwest League for Fort Wayne, throughout the spring. He was an all-star and then got promoted to Lake Elsinore. So he's just 19 years old and he's playing in high A. So it's fun to see, and maybe there's a little bit of a logjam with those guys, but I think that's a great problem that teams would kill to have. The Padres rank the #1 minor league system in baseball. You'd rather have an embarrassment of riches with great players than
assets.
And assets, exactly.
Also, have 8 former Dust Devils on the roster as of the time of this taping, and a lot of them were in the last handful of years, if not all of them.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. When Adrian Morahone made his Major League debut, that was back on, that was Sunday, so we're talking about July 21st, right around there. That Morahone became the 3rd former Dust Devil to reach the big leagues from the 2017 squad. And no other team in the entire Northwest League, so none of these 7 other teams, have had 1 non-rehab player reach the big leagues, and the Dust Devils have had 3 from that season.
And he hopped straight from Double-A.
And he went straight from Double-A, and he was certainly a guy that the Padres invested quite a bit in. It was a big deal.
$11 million.
Yeah, and then that was the year that they kind of went all in as far as their international signings.
Yeah.
So I think there was going over their allotment, so there was a tax component to it too, in addition to what he received. So really remarkable. So he was a guy that there were high hopes for. Andres Munoz, what an incredible rise it has been. Munoz was with the Dust Devils 2 years ago, and that was a little more by design.
Yeah.
And then last year, I don't think he was 100% coming out of spring training, so he started last year with the Dust Devils. But a guy who could pound it in there with Tri-City, he got up to about 102. I know this year in Amarillo in Double-A, they had him clocked at 104.
104.
And this is incredible. This guy, 20 years old, and he goes to the big leagues and has already got one of the most, live arms, electric arms, exactly. Better way to put it, electric arms in all of Major League Baseball. And I remember talking to Dust Devils manager Mike McCoy last year about Munoz, and he said, this kid's got $1 million arm. And you knew it at the time, but you maybe just didn't realize it was going to take, I think it was 13 months, a little under 13 months from when he made his last appearance with the Dust Devils to reach in the big leagues, which is a remarkable rise.
Back here in the Tri-Cities, we had a pretty memorable moment. We had a no-hitter, and it was your second no-hitter. How do you go about attacking what is happening on the field, where there's this stigma where you can't talk about no-hitters, broadcasters don't like talking about it? I think personally it's a little overdone. Like what you're gonna say play-by-play isn't gonna affect what those guys do. But how do you attack it?
If I had that much control over what happened on the field than what I say up in the booth, I'd say a lot of other things too. We'd be having no-hitters every night if I had that kind of impact. So I'm with you. I get it. In baseball, it's a superstitious game, so you understand how people are superstitious on some things. At the end of the day, if you're tuning into the broadcast, you want to know what's going on. And I think you're doing a disservice to the listener if they tune in and you're being a little too coy about what's happening on the field. Because if I tune into a game and I'm just checking on the score and I know that it's a no-hitter taking place in the 6th or 7th inning, then I want to listen to the rest of that game, and I want to see what happens, and if that no-hitter is able to be completed. And if I'm, if the broadcaster is trying to tap dance around what's actually happened, I just don't think that's the job. I think the job is to explain what's happening on the field, and I don't think by me saying no-hitter or the other team has no hits or there's been a no-hitter through this point, I don't think that impacts anything. So I wasn't shy this last time back on June 29th. I wasn't shy back in July of 2013 that you mentioned it, and hopefully that people who are listening in, and you got to understand there's, people are tuning in or tuning out. They're in their cars, they're listening on their phone, they're listening on their computer, that maybe they're not hearing every pitch, that you want to make sure if there's something that could be, historic by Dust Devil standards, by Northwest League standards, something that's notable across minor league baseball, that if that's happening in that game, you want to let that be known so the listener can have their ears perk up and they can say, oh man, I want to, really hear what happens.
And we talk about these things as players or coaches, but even covering a game that is like that, you get a thrill from that. I know for me, covering these state games that I get to go to, or the one of the ones that stick out to me that I'll always remember is the Gonzaga Prep versus Richland basketball game, semifinals for state a couple years ago. that was a thrill for me just to cover. I was shooting on the sidelines. So what's it like for you in the moments, or do you get to enjoy it, or are you kind of locked into what your formula?
You know, you definitely get to enjoy it, and it's just the beautiful thing about baseball. And I get to do a number of sports, and they're all like my children when I get to announce baseball or football or basketball. I love them all. You know, in the summer there's no place I'd rather be than out here at the ballpark. You know, there's no place I'd rather be in the fall than out on the gridiron. There's no place I'd rather be in the winter than either at an arena or a gym, wherever it is. But that being said, it's hard to compare to something great like that happens in baseball, and you just feel the anticipation build and build, where maybe you mentioned it for the first time after the fourth inning. Wow, you know, so far the Dust Devils have kept the Aqua Sox hitless. Yeah. But then as the fifth inning rolls around, sixth inning, seventh inning, then all of a sudden it's the eighth inning. Then you get the feeling that the guys in the dugout, the guys in the bullpen, that they know what's going on now, because sometimes then it might even elude them. But that build-up and the anticipation, and then the payoff when it ultimately is completed.
Swung on, it's a high bouncer to Barley. He grabs it, the throw to second, in time! The Dust Devils get the force on Tinglestad, and Tri-City throws the 43rd no-hitter in the history of the Northwest League.
All right, well, we got to wrap this up because we said this was going to be 10 minutes, and I'm pretty sure we're over the 10-minute mark, so we'll let you go. We have a game tonight. Chris, it was a pleasure. First guest on the Monday Trifecta, Mr. Chris King. Keep a listen out. Let's do a little shameless plug. Where can they listen to you?
Well, they can listen. I'll say we go over 10 minutes. You get a couple broadcasters together, and we go along. You can listen to Dust Devils games here in the Tri-Cities, News Talk 870, and then also at the TuneIn. So on the TuneIn app, you can listen. It's a free app on your phone or on your tablet, and then at DustDevilsBaseball.com.
Twitter handle?
Twitter handle at Chris King Sports.
All right, there you have it. All right, we'll get back to everyone, to the podcast. And Chris, thanks again for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So you just heard what Chris had to say when I asked him about saying or not saying no-hitter, or there's been no one's on the base paths as if there's a perfect game or something. What are your feelings on that?
My thing is, while baseball, basketball, football, whatever the sport is, it is a sport, but to multiple people, it's turned into entertainment. And part of entertainment is telling a story. No-hitter, that's a story. And I don't watch all 9 innings of baseball games mostly. I do in the playoffs because it's just a struggle. So what happens is I might watch a couple innings, then I might go to Netflix or I might go on my phone or something, and I'll come back in the 6th inning. It is I feel that it's the play-by-play's decision, and it's his responsibility to tell the public what is going on, to keep them informed of what's happening. If I've missed a couple innings and I'm tuning in the 7th inning and the pitcher has a shutout or has a no-hitter, I want to know that thing. I want to know what's going on. So I feel like lots of fans are going to be complaining about it, like, oh, it's ruining the sport or it's jinxing it. The pitcher is not locked in. He doesn't have AirPods out there, or they might go on Twitter during the commercial breaks. We don't know. But the play-by-play, he's talking to the people, and it's entertainment. You have to be able to tell a story.
I think even more so, Chris mainly does radio, or he definitely just does radio for Dust Devils. And on TV, you have a graphic that maybe says if there's hits or anything like that, but radio you don't. So you're even more so obligated, I feel like we're saying, just to tell people what's going on. Because the other thing is, like, if you're flipping around like everyone does these days in our instant world, if you hear no-hitter, you're going to tune in. You're going to stop flipping through channels, and you're going to stop and watch the rest of that game. And that's what Chris also said. So I think, yes, you have to say it. And I think it's overblown, and I think people need to get off the don't say no-hitter thing.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. It's like the bat flip in baseball. Like, everyone's flipping out over the bat flip in baseball, but people tune in. It's on social media, gets lots of clicks, gets lots of likes. It brings people to the sport. So I feel like the old ball club, rules of how things need to happen, that needs to change, because the world is ever changing and sports is ever changing. Yep. So we need to, take in the new stuff. Along with Dust Devils, going back to last week against Spokane, you were at a game, and then I went to a game in which something very, very bad happened. I'll turn it over to you, because you were at game number 1.
Game 1, we were sitting there. First pitch goes, gets on base, a couple guys get on base, and then bam, 3-run shot. Spokane hits a 3-run bomb, and you're like, oh, this isn't going to turn out. Well, 10 runs later.
And how many minutes later?
35. 35 minutes for 3 outs, and 10 runs later, it just felt like the game was over. And essentially the game was over. I don't know how you recover from that. And Manager McCoy said, I was even thinking about if I need to start throwing a position player at that point. But they got out of it, and he was also happy with how the guys kind of handled it. I talked to him on, I think, Wednesday, because I was game 2. And then Thursday, what happened, Mick?
Well, I was late to the game, as I usually am, because I was at a shoot before. And so I show up late. And so, one of the worst nightmares that we have when going to games is that when we show up late, something spectacular happened. Or when we leave early, after we leave, something spectacular happened. So that was my fear. Got to the ballpark, 0-0, second inning. I was like, oh, I'm great. Kind of same thing. Base hit, walk, 3-run home run. I'm just like, all right, 3-0, they can fight back from this. And then 25 minutes later, mine was 30 minutes, not as long as yours. Good. But 30 minutes later, it's 10-0. At that point, I'm just like, if I get one good Dust Devil play, then I'm just going to grab that and go. It was rough. But again, that was before the bats came alive, so hopefully the bats are alive. Quickly, I want you to explain to our listeners why it's so hard for batters to hit home runs in Giza.
Usually it's the wind direction. The wind is usually pushing in, so you just simple physics. Can't, it's hard to hit into the wind, just like with golf. It's hard to hit into the wind. So the wind's blowing usually in. The only really good shot, and you see it a lot, is the moon. Over the moon, the Bob Moon. I think it's Bob Moon. Mm-hmm. That's the only spot where it kind of gets out. But the other areas of the ballpark, it's really, really hard. It's a dead place, and we don't see very many home runs at home. Usually it's about 20, around 20. So, yeah, it's just kind of dead out there.
And that's why I guess the Dust Devils hit their home runs when they're on the road. So, well, now we're transitioning to the Walla Walla Sweets. They had an okay weekend. They're still trying to get back into their groove after starting 10-0 on the season. They're kind of, fell into a little bit of slumps, and so they're trying to get things back together. Like you said, they went in 3-2 this weekend.
Big wins, too. That series against Wenatchee was huge. Coming out of the All-Star break, they were in the lower half of the standings, and they needed some good momentum. They got 2 wins against Wenatchee, and then now they're taking on Cowlitz for 3 more. Game 1 was last night, and they won that one. So they're in a good spot because Cowlitz is a couple ahead of them in the standings. So if they can maybe sweep, they'd get to 7-8, and they would be then 2 back of Cowlitz. And we've talked about it before. Corvallis is at the top of the division, but you don't really need to worry about them because they won the first half, and you can't win the second because you can't play against your own self. I mean, I guess you could, but they don't.
Only in 2K and Madden.
Yeah. So they're playing against kind of Cowlitz, Portland, Ridgefield, Ben's below them. So they just have to get through there. We talked about the Sweets. We've talked about guys who come in to Walla Walla, into our area, imports, as I call them in a nice way. But we have some local, homebred people that are very good this summer. We have Nick Irwin, Brady Hirai, and Carson Green, and they're all guys that grew up in our prep system, and I think it says something that they have all come out this summer and balled. And the first guy that we're going to talk about is probably balled more than anyone else. Nick Irwin has been a revelation this this summer. Kind of their off season. It's between their college seasons.
Yeah.
And his ERA is a sparkling 1.95 in 23 innings of work, 21 strikeouts. He's only given up 5 earned runs. But the outing I want to kind of talk about is July 17th against Victoria. If you don't know, they played 19 innings that night.
Yep.
And our boy Nick came in and threw 5 shutout innings in extras. Just shut the door. That is the reason why they were able to come back, because obviously if he gives up 1, there's a likelihood that they would lose that game.
Yeah.
So he came in and pitched 5 and struck out 5, gave up 6 hits, but you know what? They don't cross the plate, so it doesn't matter. And he's just been an absolute revelation. I've loved watching him work and progress and seeing him do some big things.
Yeah, going back to that outing, I want to first talk about his character and then his mentality. First of all, character. That is 19 innings that game went.
Yeah.
He was not planning on playing in that game. And
Probably
so he
not.
probably could have just sat back and relaxed and just kind of watched the game. But the character that Nick has, he was always ready to go in at any point. And like you said, 5 innings, no runs allowed. He did give up 6 hits, and that goes to the mentality part. If you give up 6 hits in 5 innings, there's a chance that one of those hits turns to a run. Didn't allow any of that to happen. While runners were able to get on base, he locked in and made sure that those runners weren't making their way home. His character and his mentality of going in, making a difference, even though he might not be the ace or the main guy that they go to, his ability to always stay locked in, and then when he gets his chance, be able to show out and ball out, it's been truly amazing. It's something that I look forward to watching the athletes of this area, because he is a product of the great sport and great athletes we have in this area.
And he, one of his big weapons now is he's been working on dropping his arm slot to kind of have a slider from here or underneath, and it's really been getting guys out. It's really been keeping batters off balance. So that's been cool, and he's been working on that really hard all summer. So bring it back for Northwest Nazarene. The other one, Chihuahua product, Brady Hirai, a lefty, high leg kick. I love it. He came in last week against Wenatchee, bases loaded, no outs, and gave up 1 run, but he kept the lead and he gave it back to his bats, and eventually they would win 3-2. A pitcher coming in, no outs, bases loaded, got some great plays by Connor Cirillo and Cesar Lopez out and left, but he had to do a lot of work, and it was really, really impressive to see him fight through and get out of it. He got the strike zone was pretty small that night, if I recall, and he got it done. It was just, he's going to Central Washington. He committed earlier in this offseason.
Yeah, with Brady, it's the same thing with Nick. His ability to have character and that mentality of team first, not me first. And I look back at the Wenatchee game. I look back against the games against the Black Bears. He's been able to go in and make an impact. And like you said, if you're a pitcher and you go in with bases loaded, no outs, that's daunting.
Yeah.
Because not only there's multiple ways in which the team can score. Pop outs, sac flies, bunts, doesn't matter. There are multiple ways. Yeah, pass balls. We've seen multiple pass balls to the wall this season and resulted in runs scored. And so his ability to also have that character of team first, doesn't matter what the pitcher before me did. Now's my opportunity to come in, make a difference, help my team win. Again, Brady has been one of those guys, along with Nick, who they're not the ace. There were 2 pitchers that went to the All-Star game for the Sweets. It was not Brady. It was not Nick. But these 2 kids, I've been extremely impressed by the character that they have shown and their mentality of being able to go in, put the team first, and make big plays.
And the third guy from our area is Carson Green, a teammate of Nick Irwin at Kamiakin. And he's playing second base, a little bit of shortstop. He's kind of played a couple times around the diamond. He's hitting .295 for the summer, very good. And early on in the year, he was playing a lot, consistently. Second base, he was always in there and had some big hits early on in the season during that 10-game winning streak. Now, as guys come in and guys that maybe go to 4 years, right now he's at Walla Walla CC trying to still progress to that next spot. He's doing a little more sporadic, but he's come in and he's played very well when he has. He has a 4-game hitting streak going, and that's in the last week, and he just puts the bat on the ball, and he's not letting everything else kind of overwhelm him. It's really, and he's got a good glove. He's quick. He's got a really good glove too.
Yeah, I feel like I'm repeating myself with these 3 kids when it comes to their character, because like you said, he was kind of jumping around. They were kind of just trying to figure out what his spot on the team was, what was going to be his role. And having played sports before, I played basketball, and when I had played point guard and shooting guard in the same season, I was bouncing between the 2. That was really rough because I didn't know what my role is. I didn't know what I was supposed to do on a daily basis. And so I understand how hard that must be. But like you said, 4-game hitting streak. I go back to the series against Wenatchee. He had 4 hits in 3 games. Baseball is all about rhythm, consistency, and I feel like these past 4 games he's really been able to get that consistency, get that rhythm. That's going to allow him to be on the field more, and when he's on the field, he produces, he shows out, and that's really what it comes to. These local kids here in the Tri-Cities area, they go out, and the things that they've learned in this area they're putting into practice in college and summer league, and it's really, really cool to see.
Speaking of local guys, also just saw this, Mason Martin, Southridge product, who is now in Single A, full season, high single for the Matadors, Bradenton, the Pirates organization. He was named Player of the Week this week. So we got
more kids on the local area showing out and playing great.
Now let's turn our attention to more lighter things in life.
All the fun stuff. Last week we talked about Phase 4 of Marvel's cinematic universe, but today we'll put a cap on Phase 3, that being the last film in Phase 3 being Spider-Man. And I feel like if you haven't seen the movie up until this point, you either don't care.
You're late to the party.
And so spoilers should not make you mad, but again, I don't want to upset any of our fans. So At this point, just mute for the next couple
Yeah.
minutes as we ramble without end. What were your thoughts, impressions? Did you like, did you not like Spider-Man Far From Home?
I thought it was a very solid movie, and I will say, disclaimer, I'm pretty easy to please when it comes to superhero movies because I just think they're entertaining, and that's what they are. But I thought it was good. I thought it was above average, and I thought it was maybe in the top 10, 12 of the Marvel movies.
Okay.
I thought it was good. I really liked, actually, how they unveiled Mysterio as a bad guy, because early on in the film, he's buddies with Peter Parker. He's trying to tell him, give him life advice and things like that. Then we find out he's just a con artist.
Yeah.
Illusions everywhere. So that was really cool how they did that with Jake Gyllenhaal. And I thought it was good. I mean, one thing that I've talked about that I didn't really like was just, I thought it was a little bit too much teenage angst for me.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, Peter Parker is like 16, so I get it. But he was a little whiny to me at some points about, doing homework and things.
Yeah, that was kind of annoyed me. My favorite part of the movie, and you're going to laugh at this, and probably most of you are going to laugh about it, was Zendaya.
No, I mean, that's a lot of people.
That was my favorite part. But like you said, like I didn't like that. I felt like I was watching a teenage movie, and that like I understand they're in high school, but like level it back, like bring it back just a little bit. I also like the Mysterio thing. I thought it was funny because people that watch trailers and stuff, they didn't understand. If you don't read the comics or really understand, people didn't know that Mysterio's a bad guy. And so when I saw it, like a bunch of like people were like, "What? He's a bad guy?" And I was like,
yeah.
Do you not read the comics? Like,
Yeah.
Who did you think the bad guy was going to be? So I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was a good villain. I don't think he was like on the level of Killmonger or Thanos or anything like that, but I think he was a solid villain. I think I liked Homecoming a little bit more than Far From Home, but all in all, it was a great movie. It eclipsed $1 billion, and that was big because I think we read a report somewhere that had it not made $1 billion, Sony was going to have
get back most of the rights,
most of the control because Marvel bought some of the rights, but they don't have the sole rights. All that's kind of
It's
I
like
don't
dual
understand.
parenting, co-parenting.
So like when you get a divorce, like Marvel gets them for the
you get
weekend,
Sunday,
Sony gets weekdays,
so
something like
it's
that. So
something like that.
I don't understand that aspect, but yeah, all in all, it was a good movie. You saw Lion King. I haven't seen that one. Maybe I'll go out this weekend, and for episode 3,
it's
we
like
can talk
watching
about
Planet
the Lion
Earth
King. Yeah,
with talking animals.
and Beyonce's in it. So that in and of itself should bring people to the theaters.
You got to. All right, well, should I wrap this thing up?
Yep, wrap this thing up. Episode 2.
So we like to have a good time around here. We have to have fun. But unfortunately, some terrible things happened in my hometown this weekend. And I just want to send some love out to my family, my friends, everyone who was involved. We got Herbie here, who's the mascot for the Garlic Festival. That's our boy. He's always with me here. I was wearing my G-Fest tank, Garlic Festival tank. Haven't taken it off. I wore it this weekend. I always wear it every Garlic Festival weekend. I have another one. Was trying to get another one this year. Didn't work out. But I wear it every Garlic Festival weekend because it is a huge thing just for the community. It's all a nonprofit, and basically it's just volunteers who volunteer their time so that sports at Gilroy High School, Christopher High School, the high schools, the middle schools, they have funds. They volunteer their time so that they can have money for their things and all the stuff that goes on. So there was a shooting in Gilroy at the Garlic Festival, and I had some friends that had to run out and help people, and so I just want to send my love to them. And I wish I was home, but I'm not, and I'm going to be home in 2 weeks, so that'll be good to see everybody. But, hang strong in there, stay strong, and we're a strong community, we're a strong group of people. We'll be back, Garlic Festival will be back, and I sure as heck will be there when it is back next year, this weekend next year. So I guess, unfortunately, that's kind of how we're going to end this podcast, but hopefully you enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely sending thoughts and prayers to not only your family, your friends, but the people of Gilroy.
Yep.
We hate to see these kind of things happen, but I feel like we talked about this before we recorded the podcast, that we felt it was our responsibility. We have this opportunity and platform to reach out to, even if it just be one person, to let you know that we are here for you, we love you, we care for you, and
Yep.
I can't wait for you to be able to go back home, see your family and friends, and then be back at it again next year for Gilroy.
Yep, we'll be there. All right, Trifecta next week. We'll see you then.